Well, right now they seem to be an ally, and I think it'll continue to be an ally. And we don't want to have Russia there. We don't want to have China there. And by the way, we don't want Russia or China going to Greenland, which if we don't take Greenland, you're going to have Russia or China as your next door neighbor. That's not going to happen.
A plan to invade Greenland, not a proposal, not a discussion, an active military order, and it's happening right now. Reports have surfaced that Donald Trump has ordered his military chiefs to draw up invasion plans for Greenland. This isn't speculation. This is the Joint Special Operations Command being told to prepare. But here's what makes this different. Senior military figures are refusing. They're calling it illegal. And what's unfolding behind closed doors could change everything. Check this out. Donald Trump has gone from casual interest in buying Greenland to explicitly ordering invasion plans. The shift happened fast, and the details are worse than the headline. We're going to break this down. I'm going to show you the evidence, the contradictions, the timeline, and what it means for NATO. This is one of those stories that's going to have massive implications for American foreign policy and our relationships with our closest allies. Now, I want to start here because there's been an ongoing controversy for weeks, and it just became relevant in a way no one expected. Several members of Congress who are also veterans released a video. They reminded service members that they have an obligation to refuse illegal orders. Senator Mark Kelly, former Navy captain, Senator Alyssa Slotkin, former CIA officer, Representative Jason Crow, former Army Ranger, Representative Chrissy Houlihan, former Air Force officer, Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander, former intelligence officer. These are serious people with serious credentials who understand what it means to serve in uniform. They said something very simple. You have an obligation to not follow illegal orders. Trump viewed this as treason. He lost his mind. He said they were traitors. Pete Hegseth specifically targeted Senator Mark Kelly, trying to derank him, take away his pension, even court-martial him for appearing in this video. And now those warnings have been vindicated because Donald Trump is trying to issue what would be an illegal order right now. Let me show you what they said, because it matters. They spoke directly to members of the military. We want to speak to you who take risks each day to keep Americans safe. We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now. Americans trust their military, but that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military and intelligence community professionals against American citizens like us. You all swore an oath to protect and defend this Constitution. And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders. You can refuse illegal orders. You must refuse illegal orders. No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution. We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant. But whether you're serving in the CIA, the Army, our Navy, the Air Force, your vigilance is critical. And know that we have your back, because now more than ever, the American people need you. We need you to stand up for our laws, our Constitution, and who we are as Americans. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up the ship. All they're saying is don't follow illegal orders. That's it. Donald Trump came after them, threatened them, said they've committed treason, and now they've been completely vindicated. The fact that we're even having this conversation shows how far we've come from normal governance. But that's not even the most alarming part. Let's talk about how this escalated. Trump told oil executives that he wants to make a deal the easy way, but if that fails, he's prepared to do it the hard way. Here's what he said about Greenland when meeting with oil executives at the White House. I would like to make a deal, the easy way. But if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And I'm a fan of Denmark too, I have to tell you. And by the way, I'm a fan. He's a fan of Denmark. He's just threatening to invade them. You hear him clearly. We'll either do it the easy way or the hard way. The hard way means militarily. And now that plan is being drafted. This isn't hypothetical anymore. This isn't Trump bluster. This is an actual military plan being developed at his direction. While Senator Marco Rubio has tried to downplay this to lawmakers as a simple purchase plan, internal figures like Stephen Miller are much more aggressive. And it's not just Trump saying this, it's members of his team. Katie Miller, Stephen Miller's wife, posted a map of Greenland with the American flag plastered all over it. The caption just says soon. Just that one word, soon. The audacity of posting something like that publicly while diplomatic channels are supposedly working on this is staggering. Miller has claimed that no one is going to fight the U.S. over Greenland, suggesting a military takeover would be unopposed. Natasha Bertrand from CNN reported that Stephen Miller told Jake Tapper this exact phrase. There wouldn't need to be a U.S. military operation for the U.S. to take over the island, which he says should belong to the United States. Stephen Miller is saying nobody would even dare step in our way, because if they do, they won't want to fight us. It's this kind of swagger that completely ignores international law, NATO obligations, and the consequences of such actions, which is completely contradictory to what's being told to lawmakers. Marco Rubio has been telling lawmakers that Trump wants to buy Greenland, that an invasion is not imminent. But now we have this report that contradicts everything Rubio is saying publicly. So either Rubio is being kept in the dark about what's really happening, or he's actively misleading Congress, which would be a whole other problem. And here's what makes this worse: the motivation. Hawks in the administration claim they want to seize the island before Russia or China can make a move, even though Greenland is already protected by NATO through Denmark. Let's get into the specifics. Donald Trump has ordered his Special Forces commanders, specifically the Joint Special Operations Command, to draw up a plan for the invasion of Greenland. But he's being resisted by senior military figures who are pushing back hard. Sources say the policy hawks around him, led by Stephen Miller, have been emboldened by the success of the operation to capture Maduro in Venezuela. They want to move quickly to seize the island before Russia or China make a move. Now I find it hard to believe that Russia or China are looking to make an imminent move against Greenland. Why? Because Greenland is part of NATO by way of Denmark. So is Trump trying to say that Russia and China are going to start World War III over Greenland? Is that what they're claiming? Do they have intelligence that shows they plan to do that? Because that might be good information for the American people to know. But they're just running with this excuse that Russia and China are right now trying to invade it or take it over. It doesn't make logical sense. It sounds more like a justification for something they already want to do rather than a legitimate national security concern. But what happens next is where this gets dangerous. The stakes couldn't be higher. Diplomatic cables suggest that invading Greenland could effectively lead to the collapse of NATO. Let me say that again. This could collapse NATO. Some European officials fear this might actually be the goal of the hardline MAGA faction, forcing Europeans to abandon the alliance since Congress won't let the U.S. exit it legally. The President has asked the Joint Special Operations Command to prepare this invasion plan, but it is being resisted by the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the grounds that it would be illegal and would not be supported by Congress. So at least there's some pushback happening internally. Those Democrats in that video have been completely vindicated. This is exactly what they warned about. One source said, and I quote, "They have tried to distract Trump by talking about less controversial measures, such as intercepting Russian ghost ships, which is a network of hundreds of vessels operated by Moscow to evade Western sanctions, or launching a strike on Iran." Think about that. They're trying to distract him with the possibility of starting a war with Iran just to keep him from doing something even more catastrophic with Greenland. The President of the United States needs to be distracted to not do something disastrous for not only us, but the entire world. He needs to be distracted. All of the warnings from military officials in Donald Trump's first term were not only true then, they're true now. Donald Trump has no idea what he's doing. He thinks he knows more than everybody in the room, and he doesn't. He has to be distracted with other possible missions that would also put the United States in harm's way, just so he doesn't blow up the world. That is a scary thought. This is not how a functioning government should operate. This is not how a commander-in-chief should be making decisions about war and peace. British diplomats have suggested this move is a distraction from domestic economic issues ahead of the midterm elections. I would agree with that assessment completely. I also think he's trying to distract the American people from a lot of other things, one of them being his connection to Jeffrey Epstein and all of that. But that's a whole other conversation for another day. The point is, there are multiple motivations at play here, and none of them are about genuine national security. Now, here's where the timeline becomes critical. One diplomatic cable describes the worst-case scenario as leading to the destruction of NATO from the inside. It adds that some European officials suspect this is the real aim of the hardline MAGA faction around Trump. Think about the implications. Since Congress would not allow Trump to exit NATO legally, occupying Greenland could force the Europeans to abandon NATO. If Trump wants to end it, this might be the most convenient way to do it. Not only would Donald Trump invading Greenland put us at odds with Europe, one of America's strongest and longest allies, but it would effectively end NATO, because either the European countries would fight back against the United States, which would be catastrophic and even worse, or they just say, we're not going to work with these people anymore. We're not doing this. Which would be an absolute gift to Russia and China, who are certainly watching all of this take place very carefully. In fact, the situation is so volatile that sources claim military generals are trying to distract the president with less catastrophic missions, like intercepting Russian ghost ships, just to keep the Greenland plan off the table. The cable says for domestic political reasons, Trump can start with an escalatory scenario which shifts to a compromise scenario. European officials fear that for Trump, the window of opportunity before the midterms is closing in the summer. Therefore, action is expected sooner rather than later. This suggests that we could see movement on this as early as the next few months, which is terrifying. When could this happen? Reports indicate the window of opportunity is seen as closing by this summer. The NATO summit on July 7th is being eyed as a critical date for either a compromise deal or an escalation. It also concludes the current concerns about an invasion are driven by the most extreme views coming from Stephen Miller. The UK's positioning will be key, whether it sticks closely with European allies or breaks ranks to sanction Trump's approach. If the UK sides with the United States on this, it could create a fracture in European unity that would have consequences for decades to come. For now, the military is reportedly resisting, calling the plan crazy, and treating the situation like they are dealing with a 5-year-old. A diplomatic source said, "The generals think Trump's Greenland plan is crazy and illegal, so they are trying to deflect him with other major military operations. They say it's like dealing with a 5-year-old, which we've heard time and time again about Donald Trump. Military officials saying he is essentially a 5-year-old child. He has no idea what he's doing, and it's coming true now. It's coming true again." These aren't partisan Democrats saying this. These are military professionals who have served under both Republican and Democratic administrations. And they're all saying the same thing. But here's what no one is asking. What happens if the military refuses and Trump tries to go around them? What happens if he finds commanders willing to carry out an illegal order? What happens if Europe calls his bluff and he feels he has to follow through? These are the questions that should be keeping people up at night. Because we're not just talking about a diplomatic incident. We're not just talking about strained relationships. We're talking about the potential collapse of the most successful military alliance in modern history. We're talking about setting a precedent where the United States can militarily seize territory from democratic allies whenever it wants. We're talking about abandoning 75 years of international norms that have kept the peace in Europe. It is insane that we are in this position. It is insane that Donald Trump is drafting up an illegal order to potentially invade a NATO ally's territory. And again, to the military, you don't have to follow illegal orders. You have an obligation to not follow illegal orders. So we'll see what happens here. But Donald Trump is looking to invade. He wants to get in there. He wants to do this. It's absolutely crazy. And the fact that we even have to have this conversation, the fact that we have to remind military personnel that they don't have to follow illegal orders, shows how far we've fallen from the norms that used to govern American foreign policy. Is this a genuine national security strategy or a move that could end our most important alliances? That's the question we all need to be asking ourselves right now. The implications of this are massive. We're talking about potentially destroying NATO from the inside. We're talking about alienating our closest European allies. We're talking about setting a precedent where the United States can just militarily seize territory from democratic allies whenever it feels like it. This is not normal. This is not how foreign policy works. This is not how alliances work. This is the kind of behavior we would expect from authoritarian regimes, not from the United States of America. But here's what should concern you most. This isn't just about Greenland. It's about what comes next. If Trump can order the military to invade a NATO ally's territory and face no real consequences, what else becomes possible? What other red lines disappear? What other norms get shattered? Because once you cross certain lines, you don't get to go back. Once you've shown that international law doesn't matter, that alliances don't matter, that the rules-based order is just a suggestion, you've fundamentally changed the game. And not in a way that benefits the United States, in a way that benefits our adversaries, in a way that makes the world more dangerous, in a way that puts American lives at risk. So when people ask if this is real or just bluster, the answer is it doesn't matter. The fact that we're even having this conversation, the fact that military planners are being ordered to draw up invasion plans, the fact that our allies are genuinely concerned about what the United States might do, that's already done the damage. That's already undermined trust. That's already shown the world that America under this administration is willing to consider things that were previously unthinkable. And you can't put that genie back in the bottle. So look, I will leave the video there. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you concerned about this? Do you think this is just bluster, or do you think Trump is actually serious about this? Make sure to subscribe down below. Drop a like on the video, comment, and let me know your thoughts about this developing story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this situation as it continues to unfold. And as I always say, I greatly appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.